Okay, so I'm just going to go into Bluebeam. So this is the job. I'm just going to go into Barton. So whenever I'm, yes, yes, you can. All good, Marvy? Cool. All right. So I think so. I just normally save the version of the plans that I'm working off of as PE at the end, production estimating version. So generally I'll be working off construction issue version. So you've got the CC and then the PE at the end. So I'll just open these ones up. Yeah, I've been doing that a little bit with sales estimating, just saving that at the end. For all the standard ones that you're doing, you don't really need to save it as a different word. In terms of when you're doing the tender issue ones with the Lancon homes, you'll generally just be working. I'd be hoping you guys would only be working off one version, and you could just save the version that you're working off of in the tender folder, so that you're not having to work off a lot. Yep. Cool. All right. So I'll just open up databuild as well so you can see. So I'll just go into 102 BAR, which is this job that we're just looking at. So the cost center that we're doing is Cladding Carpenter. So this is our cost center here. I'm actually just going to delete all these items because they're in red, so we can't use them. Okay, so this is the cost center that we're going to be looking at, which is the eaves and cladding carpentry. So you can see on the plans here, this is your eaves all running around the house. We'll also be doing the underside of the front in the eave carpentry. And then you've obviously got all the cladding on the front of the house. So all lightweight cladding is done in this cost center. So where you've got block work shown here, we won't be doing, that's covered in a different cost center. So that's the block laying cost center. So we'll just be dealing with any products like a James Hardie, Axon, your FC sheets. So we've got the James Hardie 900 sheets here. We've also got your timber cladding. So things like a hardwood feature cladding, or your timber weatherboard, or your WeatherTex, as Mahir was saying. So we've got quite a few different ones that we'll be using within this cost centre. So at the moment, we don't tend to have prices for Hebel and VJ paneling and metal look timber cladding. They're all ones that we would get a price at the time, depending on the specific product that we were looking at. So if you just use the items in black, those are the ones that I have already spoken to the carpenters and got pricing for. So when we're doing cladding, there are notes in databuild already on a little bit of information. So it includes Blueboard, which is a fibre cement sheet product that we render. You've got Easy Lap, which is another James Hardie product, which basically gets painted with an acrylic paint to look like a light render. And then you've got board products. So Axon comes in a sheet but looks like a board, and then you've got linear boards. So this basically just covers all fibre cement sheet cladding. And it does include all the picture framing to windows. So when we mean picture framing to windows, so this is a very good example. So we've got the James Hardie Newport cladding here, and you can see that you've got a white frame around the window. So that's what at Lancome we call picture framing. It can also be called battening. So you basically create a stop on the cladding for the window. So the actual timber size is shown in the estimating manual and is covered in the Lancome way. And it depends on the particular cladding material used here and also the style of the house. So you can see that this one is a Hampton style house. So they do want quite large timber look finishes, quite chunky timber is part of the look of that house. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about picture framing, which is done on basically anywhere where we have to stop cladding. We have to figure out how we're going to actually finish that stop off. So we've got stops on the corners here, and then we've also got to finish round windows and doors to create a stop. All right, so we've got that's our FC cladding. We've also got to install cladding around beams. So this is a lineal metre rate. Generally, we'll be using this when we've got a beam for 3 sides. So, for example, on this house, let's just see if it's often not really provided in the details too much, but you can see a beam like this is going to need to be protected. So basically the purpose of wrapping or cladding a beam is that this timber is generally in a non-weather guard product, so it's not a painted hardwood beam or something like that. So we basically just need to allow for painting of cladding of 3 sides of that one. So that's just done as a lineal metre rate. Then we've got another item. We've got SC sheeting. So this particular line item, don't know if I don't have text on that, is basically for any large areas such as entry ceilings or alfresco ceilings that are going to be done in fibre cement. So if this ceiling along here was going to be done in fibre cement sheeting, then we would use that particular rate. Because all of that will need some form of sealing. And then if this deck is fibre cement sealing, that's where we would use that rate. Yeah, so why I say if it's FC is that sometimes we do fibre cement ceilings, or sometimes we do water resistant plasterboard. So our water resistant plasterboard would be supplied, installed, and set by our plastering company. It just depends. So we'll be able to check this particular item here in our specification document. So we'll go to that and we'll just double check what's actually written there, just to be able to work out to clarify that. Then we've got labour to install SC sheets. So this is what we actually use on our eaves. So this is if it's up to 750 wide. So we would use that particular one. So I wouldn't be able to use it here because this distance from here to here is more than 750. Okay, it's a lot more. So this is more for talking about if we've got another roof coming over here and overhanging the garage ceiling. We would probably be able to use it under here because there's a roof above. There's another floor above. So if we have a look here, you can see there's going to need to be something under here, essentially as an eave. And then we've also got our eaves all the way around the house, all of these areas. So that's basically a lineal metre rate to do all of these standard 450 wide eaves. Okay. So I suspect that that's all we'll need for this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in our supplier and change the price level to -1 just to get all of the pricing to come through, just so it makes a bit more sense. Okay, so we'll start off with item 1. So this is our cladding component. So when we're doing our cladding component, I like to do it in little sections. So when I'm doing this, I'll go through. Now I do have the scale already set up in this job because I've already actually done the cladding takeoff. So we just got to make sure that that's all set up. So for this, it's basically a square meter takeoff where we only remove openings over 3 meters. So as I start to go around, you'll see how I make that sort of 3 lineal meters. Okay, so like this fairly large section of door here, can't take it out. It's not more than 3. Okay. It's a bit of an odd rule, but that's just the information that they gave me. So when I'm doing, yep.
What if the length is bigger? Like say width is smaller, but length is 3 meters.
We only do it on the length 3 meters. So sometimes we have a really long, skinny window, right, which is way smaller than this massive French door set. But that's what they want, so that's fine. So basically, we're only really taking out the garage door and large sliding windows. That's stacker door type situations. So we'll start to go through this house, and you can see basically the logic behind what I'm doing and what I'm taking out. So we'll just go through here. Okay, so I've got one area. So I just like to move from area to area and enter it into databuild. So you can use as many of these line items as you want. So with this, I'll just put in the 12.16 and I'll put notes in for myself. So this will be lower front. Okay, so that I can get a bit of an idea. If I get interrupted, I know exactly where I'm up to. Yeah, so usually I'll just name it off of exactly what this is called. So this has got your front elevation, and then you can do this one off your left side, or you can call it north, south, east, west, whatever you want, as long as you can kind of match up to what we're doing. Okay, and then I'll just keep moving round. So now this is a bit of an issue with the plan. This is just a load of rubbish. This doesn't look like this. So I don't know. It's just the line's just extended. So just pretend it doesn't exist and ignore it. Sorry, say that again, Marvy. Oh, that red dotted line, that's marking height. Do you know what that is, Marvy? That's actually marking heights from natural. This is natural ground level. That's what that stands for. And so that's marking before we came in and cut all this out here. That was the natural ground. And this is part of your requirements for, you actually need something called a relaxation, and you need special approval to build higher than this. So that's why we have to mark that on our plan. So if this, when we finish building this house, if the boys have stuffed it up and they built it too high, we'll be in trouble. So if the roof finishes off up here, we're going to be in trouble. So that's what the natural ground line. So if you're ever sales estimating a job, and it's marked that as very close or above, you'll know that we've got an issue and there'll be extra costs there for the client and there'll be delays. Okay. So basically, in order to be able to review this, we would need, if you're very close, you need to get a height certificate from the from the surveyor. So they'll come to site and just double check these levels before the guys actually start building the house. Because in theory, if that line is is really nice, and if that's ground level is perfect, in theory, the house shouldn't be higher than that. But then we also get a certificate at around framing stage. So when all the frames and trusses, roof's getting close to getting put up, they'll actually come measure that top line, and they'll give us a certificate that actually states we haven't built higher than that. Okay, before we keep building anymore. So just in case. And then if it builds higher than that, then we need to have a relaxation with our certifier. So that would be another process, and that may involve a development application, a big delayed project time frame. So it's just a different process. So sometimes it's necessary. All right, so we'll keep moving through on this one. Okay, so the key thing to note here is we have multiple layers, okay? So we have this, now we've only measured this area once. It has other stuff behind it, okay? So it's really important that when we're looking at things, we're not just looking at them in 2D, we're interpreting them potentially in 3D, okay? So once I've done the takeoff and I've kind of gone, I'll measure this again in 2 seconds' time, I'll put that information in, and then I'll come back and put that additional layer, because obviously we've got the back of that. So we've got the front and the back, but then we've also got the cladding for the house. So we've actually got 3 layers here of that cladding material. Okay, so I'll just pop this 15.85 in here. And then we'll just do that one quickly. The entry gate. That's not actually separated. Okay. Yeah, so that one, we'll have a look at that. So 0.63. Okay. Okay, does that make sense, Marby? Those 3 components? Yeah, lovely. So what we'll do now is we'll just have a quick look down here just to show you what we're talking about here. So here you can see that that's all actual one piece. So there's not actually any cladding there. That'll be roof space in theory, but no one will ever be able to get there. All right, wonderful. So we're happy everything's done on this front elevation. We've not included the garage door, and we've got those other areas. So, all right, now here. The main entry. Which part of the main entry? Where are you talking about? The door. I've done all of that, but I can't. So this area here, if I do this, you'll be able to see. Yes, so all of that area is included. I can't take out the front door because it's not longer than 3 meters. Okay, so that all just stays in. I will get, yeah, so I'll get the return of that when I get to here to do that part, that wall component there. Okay, all right. So now we start to get to something that's a little bit more interesting. So this is a key area where you have to think about something called a return. Okay, so you can kind of see here there's different cladding. There's a shadow, so we've got a roof above here, and then we've got something else going on here. So this is why I actually like to have a set of floor plans open. I print them out and I have them in front of me so that I can look at a few things at once. So
You mean actually printing out like the paper of
I, it depends how you want to do, because normally when I'm doing this, I'll have databuild open on one screen, Bluebeam on the other. And so in order for me to actually get a bit of an idea of what I'm working on, if I have a set of the actual, I'd use the construction issue version. Okay, so if we have a bit of a look here, because we've got the floor plan open, you can see that there are returns here. So we do have to have a think and make sure that we're including the cladding in return. So it's a really common place for things to get missed,
because it's inside and
because
obviously
you just can't see it on the elevation. So
you're going to leave that side, we're not going to calculate that one.
yeah,
And we already done the front part, so we already
yeah,
missed that area.
yeah, and yes, definitely. Yes, we can definitely do a manual calculation for that. And I think it's just something to, when you are looking at elevations, just to bear in mind that you can't just look at it in 2D at face value again. Yep. So what I normally do is I just go over the whole thing and then I add them as extra line items. Okay. So, yep. So we've got another double-sided area here. So this is this side here, and we'll have on the inside there, we'll have cladding obviously to both sides of that. So we'll just have to add that in twice. Like we said before, this is block work. You've got a roof across here, so we don't need to include that one. So we don't need to worry about a scale. We've got that set up. And I'll just do this in that yellow color just to make it a bit easier so you guys can see. So this is a bit dodgy, but anyway. Okay, so we've got cladding below here as well. So because this is on a floor system, we actually have to go a bit lower. So we're actually going to put cladding in around the bottom of the house there.
Like nearly subfloor.
Well, just as it's marked, but it's just a bit weird because essentially it is cladding the subfloor so that it looks pretty. So that's not the best lines in the world, but that gives you an idea. Yep. So that's 62.6. So I use LHS for left hand side, if that makes sense. Yep. All right, now we'll just do this left hand side and right hand side. I'll use that quite often if you ever see that written. And now I'm just going to do this area again. So they've got 1.92 for the inside of this. Okay, that's all making sense so far? Yep. Okay. Now I'm just got to add this other piece in here for cladding the bottom of here. Okie dokie. Right, now when I'm thinking about this, I'll do my little calculation for the extra area. So I'll just take a measurement here for that. So it's 3.12 high, and then we'll just go back to the floor plan. And now we're just going to confirm this distance here. That was the first measurement that we've taken, which I don't think it's got a measurement for. 715. That's not lining up with this. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that when we're doing our audits, we should try and make sure we've got this information. Times 0.9, so that's the return there is 2.8.
Can you write that thing as well, like how you calculated the area? So sometimes if someone wants to check the return, because return's so complicated, like this one.
Probably not. I don't think you need to. Well, I'm actually going to essentially jam all this stuff together. So you can leave it like this if you want. It's up to you. It makes for a big PO, but it means if the carpenter ever comes back to you and is like, oh, well, what's this for? Did you include this? Like I had one earlier today where he was like, oh, I want an extra for this. And I screenshotted it, sent it back to him, and it had a little label saying what it was for and which line item. So he was like, cool, happy days.
You're doing this to show us, like line by line.
Yes.
But when you're saying you're jamming up, basically what you'll do is you combine all these areas as one.
Yeah.
And then you just have that one line.
It's up to you. Like I definitely do when I'm doing cladding materials. It's all jammed up. Like I don't have all, like all of this all worked out. It is all just compressed in one piece. So otherwise, your purchase orders are 5 or 6 pages, and it's kind of annoying because, like at Bunnings, I'll have to enter the same item like continuously. But yeah, you can do it for this if you want.
Like just hide it and just put it over there as notes.
Yep.
So if they come back, we can obviously have that in notes.
Yeah. Nobody's going to complain if you've got few, because they don't enter this information as a tradesperson.
Yeah.
So you could even put the information here if you want, so they can see it.
Okay.
Yeah. It helps them know that you've counted everything. So you're putting this information for all of our reference anyway, or just even to like remind your memory of, what, to make sure that you've done everything. I just find it just saves, because they'll always come back to you and say, oh, did you remember this? And if you don't have a record of it, you got to work it out again. Okay, that was that one. And then I'm going to do the other one just while we're here. So it's 3.12 high times 1.67. So that's 5.2. Okay, so there's no more little returns. Everything else here is going to be taken into account, so I'm happy with that. Are you happy with that one, Marvy? That all seems pretty obvious. Okay, so same logic again. Now I've actually already done the bottom of this return because I calculated it in that return. So now all I'm going to do is this tiny little section here. So just remember where you're actually taking information off. You see I don't have a tick here, so I don't actually have any information, any scales saved on this. So I'll just set up a scale. Okay, that's sorted now. All right. Now here is a door that we can take off. So we will be leaving this door out. I'll just do this in a colour so you guys can see it a bit clearer. All right, so I'm going to start with that one so I don't forget. Okay, that is a really, it's clicking onto things. I might actually have to take that off. So I don't know if yours is doing this, Marvy, but sometimes it locks onto things that I can't even see on the plan. So maybe when you're doing these measurements, you might want to actually deactivate that so you can actually get it to fix to where, yeah, but it's like snapping to the wrong thing. So anyway, yeah, I'll have to Google that. It's pretty bad. All right, so 3123. Yeah. This is actually going to get cladding on it to cover up. Yep. For that labor component is here. Yeah, because that will need cladded so that you can't see all the beams and things like that under the house or the joists. An allowance for what? Sorry, the material or the labor? I've already done the materials. I've already ordered the materials, so I'm just showing you what we're doing in the labor cost center. So we're just going to look at. I won't try and cover too much all at once because we're still going to do Eaves. So in this video, I'll just show you how to do just in this cost center. Okay. I know some of this might be kind of obvious to you, Marvy, if you've already done a lot of it. You can always zone out if you've got better things to do. You can watch the video later. All right, so we're going to be able to take out that window there, and that's the only window. It's over 3 meters long, so we won't be including that in our calculation. We can just manually remove it. So you've got two ways. You can either just, if there's a lot of windows, often I won't take them out. I'll just do them as a negative in the bill of quantities. So I'll show you how I'll do that. Okay, so we've got a large area there. So 61.79. Now we can just calculate what that window is. So it's 0.6 by 3.6, and that will just take out 2.16, and that's probably just, you can do it like that. And then the carpenter can see that you've taken that window out. Does that make sense as a way of doing it? So you can do that. If there's a lot of windows and it's going to be really confusing what's in and what's out, then you can just add it like that.
Yeah, I've seen some companies that you work on this, and then again, yeah, understood that.
Okay, so that's cladding. Happy? Happy with cladding? All right. So now we've just got to do our eaves. So upstairs eaves, pretty easy. Downstairs, we're just going to have to do a little bit more research. So if we go into the specifications for this job, we'll just have a look at probably the plastering section. I'm not too sure. And we'll just see what we can find. If it should be water resistant plasterboard. So it's internal. Doesn't really say. Okay, so now we've got FC sheeting to wet areas and exterior roof areas. So I think this was actually, I had asked the plastering company to actually give me an extra overprice. So I might just chase them up because that was nearly a week ago. Okay. All right. So what I might do is we have included this to BFC. It doesn't look fantastic, and it's not really the main way that we do things at Lancon. So I'll just see if I can.
What elevation wise is so fantastic.
Has where? Why did that disappear? So you get joining strips like this, and it doesn't normally look as nice as that. Okay, so that's actually a timber piece, but we use something called a H mold, which looks more like that. So that's actually what they're going to be getting. So we're just doing a bit of research at the moment to try and find out what the cost difference is per square meter of just swapping that just to a water resistant plasterboard that's going to be set just like internal ceilings, and then we still put like a timber bead along the edge there instead of a cornice. So see if I can find you something, which is a bit of an obscure thing to be looking for, but anyway, I'll get some photos of site, but basically it's just like a normal ceiling, but just has a piece of timber there. So what we might do, if this is, we'll maybe just leave this cost center for now in terms of, we'll put a question mark there. So we can highlight this in red so that we just flag that there's an issue there. And then we'll worry about that later. So if that changes over to plaster, that would be as simple as going around the house to where we have external areas and just doing a measurement. So that is just a neat square meter measurement. And so it would be that. It would be fairly simple to anywhere that we required a ceiling. So even above this area here, because that was 900 wide, we wouldn't be able to use our lineal meter. And same with the deck, it's just going to be a simple one there. So we'll leave that item for now, but that would be simple. So we'll go on to, we'll do the beams. So this is actually a little bit of a challenging one in that sometimes we won't 100% know where they're going to have beams. We can see they definitely will have it in this deck area because we can see it on the section plan. No, but it's whether you can see it or not. So that's why it's a little bit challenging in that you can see that you've got it there and that the cladding comes down to there, but you can see that the ceiling is raised higher than the cladding on the outside. So with other areas, we don't really have a section of that entry to see whether or not the ceiling sits higher, and therefore we would have beams. You can see obviously along the front there will be beams up in this ceiling, but at this moment in time it looks like the beams sit up under where we're going to have our eave sheet or our ceiling. So at the moment we'll just do the ones around the deck there, and we'll just note that that's the only area that we've done.
How do we normally get these sort of features? Do we just ask the engineering people or to provide us something? Do we have
Sometimes it's a little bit challenging because it just depends what they've actually done on site.
things can change on site?
Yeah, it just depends how they actually build it on site sometimes. So we can just do the best that we can with the level of information that we have. So we'll pop that in and we can just do alfresco beams there, and then it's pretty clear what we've allowed. So we'll move on to the next item, which is FC sheets with PVC joins. So that is, we do all of our eave sheets with that H mold. So we do normally do, like, all of our eaves normally look like that. So when you're ordering Safite sheets, you'll have your Safite, you'll have your H mold, and then you'll also have basically essentially a cover strip or a join there that will basically cover the gap between the FC sheet and the wall cladding. So what we're going to do now is just go back up to the plans. No. So this dotted line is showing us our roof area, but I just want to check because we haven't got that width for the overhang here. So if we look on our elevations over the back deck, It is only 450, so I'm not sure why that's showing up as such a large. I think there's also an issue there with that overhang is not that wide. So anyway, that's fine. We'll just leave this out for now. It will still need eave sheets out here. So that's what we'll just measure. So we've got our scale set up, so that's fine. And we're just going to do a measurement, if it's going to click on that for me. And I'll just make this a different color. So we'll just run around the outside here. That totally didn't work, did it? No, it did. Okay. So 48 lineal meters. Okay. So I'll just leave this one here because so we need to do the entry, the alfresco ceiling. We need to do the upper deck. This area here, I'm just going to copy that down. We would always do this area here as just water resistant plaster. It doesn't really have much of an overhang or protection. So I'll just do that in water resistant plaster. It's not an area that people are really going to be looking at much anyway. It's more just like nice, pretty. Yeah, so this one would always just be done in water resistant, in fibre cement sheeting rather than the water resistant plaster. So I'll do that as 2.64, and that is okay. So that's not great. Like, we didn't totally get through that because we've still got some unanswered questions. But do you think that gives you a bit of an idea of how you'd sort of go through it?
Yeah, I think it's just been hard on the beam section because like we don't have much information on that.
It always is. Like, it's just, and look, all we've got to go off of is if there's a section detail that shows a beam. It's not a huge amount of money. The carpenters will just let you know. We can just make an allowance. And
That's what I was asking, like, can we just put an extra allowance on that? Like,
no, I don't really think it's necessary. Like, all we can do is work off the plans. If it's not shown on the plans, then it's not our fault. If it's missing, we can just say, look, you need to provide us with another section detail. So that would be if we actually went to build, say this was, one of our standard designs that Jackson built more, and it did require that there, I would just ask that the plans get updated and then you would update your bill of quantities. That's not on you. Sometimes you can't 100% know. So it wouldn't be an estimating issue. We would just ask for the plans to be updated to provide that level of detail or that information. For stuff that we don't want to put everything on the plans. Sometimes we might just want a construction detail off. So that's why we're working on the construction managers working on the Lancome Way.
yeah.
So anytime that we found that when we're working on site, we'd go, okay, this particular area will need it. What do we need to do there? And we'd actually sit down and we'll draw a little plan and we'll say, in this particular scenario, we need this particular detail, and that's what you would work off of, So we'd get a little bit more clarification on, see, that does say it's painted Safite. So I'm just going to double check with Mel and just wait and see, because if the client wants plaster, they're probably going to have to pay for it, pay the extra. I'll see what the cost difference is. If it's nothing and that's what she wants to, what the client wants to do, then we'll go in that direction. Are you happy with all that, Marvy? Was that pretty easy? You've done that a lot before. Yep. Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marvy.